All right. Hello, we're back on live stream. Welcome back, Lucille. Welcome back, everyone. Yes.
Okay, so let's take those 10 minutes to think about do you understand what I'm asking? Yes? Okay, great. So I say 10 minutes, but maybe you'll be done after five and you just tell us whenever you're done. But let's take 10 minutes to think about how to revisit a dance session that you gave already through this idea of ethically engaged session. Okay?
Can you give us maybe guiding two questions to
Mm-hmm.
think about?
Yes. Um, let's say if you were to teach hip hop, I'm just taking that example, or whatever your style is. With if you were to teach that class to a vulnerable community, to people that have some sort of um, I want to say trauma, or so it could be immigrants, it could be people in a hospital, it could be um, women in prison, right? So if you were to adapt your class to a vulnerable population, how would you go with that? How would you revisit your class so it matches the needs of that specific population? So imagine a population, a vulnerable population that you will be interested working with. Let's put it that way. Okay. Who, I mean, I remember when I was a dance student, I wanted to work with so many different communities, right? And so imagine one that you would be really interested in teaching that specific community. How do you need to adapt the way you teach in order to um, really be able to engage ethically with that specific community? Does that make sense? So let's start by asking the question, which community would you like to work with? If you were to do some activism, you were able to actually bring your art to um, a minority, a vulnerable population, who would that be? So let's first answer that question, and then I think it'd be easier. So when you know, just say it. If you already have in mind a certain community, can you tell us? Are you interested in working with incarcerated people? Yes or no? People
Can
in
you can you explain what that means?
incarcerated people, prisoners.
Mhm.
Would you be interested in giving a dance class in a prison? Would you be interested in giving a dance class in a refugee camp, or in um, LGBTQIA center, um, or um, women's shelter? Or I'm just trying to give you ideas, or cancer survivors, or any what we call vulnerable population. Yeah. So let's try to pick one that you would really be interested in working with. That would be our first step. Mhm.
I'm realizing, I think my first experience of working with a vulnerable population was with you through Borders.
Yeah.
It's like a whole other level of, like it makes you confront your discipline in a different way.
Mhm.
I think it also makes you question some of your priorities. Like I remember going into that mindset during grad school, which is when I met you. So I think
Mhm.
it also pushes you to think about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah.
And what you push for and like when to know when to step back and like
Mhm.
what's the purpose? Like it makes you question the purpose of
Exactly. So, for example, if I teach a class to dance students, I'm gonna prioritize the technique. I'm gonna prioritize um, the discipline. I'm gonna prioritize, right? But when I work with the people I work with, none of this matters. Like none of it. It's a completely different approach. The end game is even more interesting. Uh, and it's not the same quality, of course. And you don't have the same freedom in what you do, but it's just a completely different set of expectations as well.
I think yeah, like we're slowly unlocking that those layers too. When you said the expectations, I think are the biggest part that needs to change when you adapt your style of what you
Mhm.
teach, the type of workshop that you're giving to a certain different kind of population.
Mhm.
Priorities change and expect the level of expectations, the nature of the expectations also change.
Yeah.
Do you need
All right.
to?
Did you pick your community?
Yeah, I think I'm interested to work, like create something with the community. They're like underdeveloped places. They don't have enough condition to
Mhm.
create something
Okay.
because they maintain their mind, I think, ready to come out, but they don't have place.
Okay. So, for example, do you have something very specific in mind?
Mm.
Is that you going to a country where you feel you can provide something that's missing, or where you are right now going to maybe a neighborhood that would be less wealthy?
Actually, I'm not thinking this the first time because I'm trying to do something about it. I'm thinking about my city. I
Hmm.
want to go back and I want to do something there
Perfect.
because I think they need something like
Perfect. So that's your target for this specific exercise. Okay. Excellent. What about you? Do you have something in mind?
Like I'm not sure, but I think like I would want to work with people like who saw war and dealing with it.
I'm not sure I heard what you said.
And I'm not sure, but um, I think I would want to work with people who saw war
Okay.
and dealing with it.
Beautiful. So do you imagine people that experience war and came to Turkey, let's say, as refugees, or you would go some places? Cyprus, sorry. Or you would go some places.
I would go.
Okay. Love that. Okay, excellent. Excellent. So you both have very different people in mind, right? One, I'm assuming you know already pretty well the people you could interact with since this is where you're from. And um, you probably have a very distinct idea of the logistics of it, where you could go, how you could contact them, etc. When, if you want to go to a space when it's a war zone and you want to bring your expertise somewhere, the logistics will be very different, right? You're going to need to have a level of the adaptation that's going to be way greater, right? Because you're going to have so many unknown. Okay, so we have two different, completely different settings. Now think about a class, a dance class that you will teach that specific population. How will you need to adjust? What part do you think will require maybe a greater attention? Maybe there's some aspects that will need to be completely erased, or some moments that will need more emphasis, or maybe let's say you are in a pretty conservative environment, and so maybe girls and boys or men and women will have a hard time dancing together. So maybe you can anticipate and think dividing the gender so they're fully comfortable. Maybe it's not necessary, but that's something you might want to think about ahead of time, right? To make sure everybody's comfortable. So start to anticipate all of those little questions. What does that look like to turn your typical class that you teach and to adapt it to that specific population? Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. So Yıldız, you're gonna help maybe Dev a little bit more, since I'm having, it's gonna be hard for me to just hear what's going on. How about I give you 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes we have just a little debrief, see where you at, and then we can maybe work together. But I want you to start thinking about that transition, okay? From your typical class to that specific population, okay?
Yeah, feel free to take notes on your phone.
Yeah, feel free. Totally fine. Okay? All right, so it's, I don't know what time it is.
It's 55.
55. So at 05,
We come back.
you come back.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm staying here.
Okay.
I'm watching, but I don't hear very well. So unless you're really talking to me specifically. Okay. 2 more minutes and then we'll share. Are you okay with maybe sharing a little bit?
1 minute.
Okay, sure, absolutely. I'm actually 1 minute early, so go for it.
Meta is providing us with some appropriate background effects like heartbeat or background music.
Perfect. We good? Okay.
Yeah, I think we are.
Excellent. Who wants to start? Just tell us where you found. So, what was your process? What did you look up? And then we're gonna try to just sophisticate the way you approach this. Okay. So just tell me really simply, what have you been looking at? What have you been trying to change so far? Zila.
So, like, not much came to my mind, but like, if I'm going to another country,
Mhm.
which is a war zone, and I probably don't know their language, so I thought like I would learn at least some basics of their language, so I feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
We can communicate in a way. Also, like, I would like pay attention to like what they need throughout the class, like observe their body language, their expression, or like if they wanna speak.
Mhm.
That's all.
Okay, excellent. So imagine yourself in the country and you don't speak the language. So the limit of what you're telling me right now is that they will have to make an effort to try to understand you because of you'll have a very limited vocabulary to express yourself if you don't know the language, right? So it's more work for the people. If it's more work for them to try to actually understand what you were saying, right? So a more efficient way is hire a translator, hire an interpreter, hire a local person. So you're paying someone, and so there's a fluency in the communication. So at least that is fluid and simple for them and for you. Does that make sense? Um, I love that you think about language as a way to bridge the culture, and you're absolutely right. But in this type of work, I'm assuming in the hypothetical scenario that we're creating, you will not spend a year in the war zone, right? It will be a place where you just go do what you came to do and then you go back, right? You leave. And so I don't think it's necessary to have this question of language at that moment. I think the comfort of the people is more important. And so that comfort comes with the easiness for them to understand you. Does that make sense? So let's say you hire an interpreter. That makes the communication very easy. Okay. So now your next step will be, how do you start a dance class with them? It's a war zone, so I'm assuming there's not like a dance studio available, right? It's probably going to be in a pretty random place, if not in the street, maybe. Or Yıldız and I, we danced when we went to Mexico at the border. We danced in a basketball court. It was outside, and we had kids, and we met kids dance. It was a basketball court. So, how do you start a class in a basketball court, for example, outside, right? How do you engage them? Do you offer them to pick the music that they're going to dance on? Or do you bring your own? Do you choreograph something ahead of time? Or do you ask them to choreograph with you? Okay, so that's your next step to think about that scenario. Okay, yeah? Okay, what about you? Hometown?
Yeah. So I took some notes, but they're so complicated, so I will try my best. First, I taught my classes in here. Then okay. Because I think it will be so different in my dance classes here than the place I want to go, in my city, in Hatay. Because in that city, everyone has really difficult experience and you can feel that pain inside of them. And because I know in here everyone has different experience too, but I'm talking a city experience and a major natural disaster actually. Yeah. And I think I will start just with like create a safe space for them and talk and share our experiences. And like normally in my classes, I'm sometimes making something I want to change and I want to be more mindful in here because I'm just being so excited. I'm just trying to give them what I have and I'm sometimes forgetting to take something from them. But especially for Hatay in my city, I want to like learn something, took something from them. I want to share everything. Like I want to create something, but not my work. I want to create something with them. Yes, something. I think yes.
Yeah, excellent. So, yeah, this is really good. I love that you have the ability to really understand this is different from studio work, where you can come with your own ideas and put it on the bodies that have been trained for that, and they can just operate and execute what you want to do, right? So I love that both of you already have that mechanic of being like, okay, how can we include the participants so they feel they're part of something, right? Okay, so I guess your next step will be how to not, and both of you actually, how to use the stories, how to use the experience without re-traumatizing them. Because the goal is not just to revisit something they're not ready to revisit emotionally, or to make them like go back to a place mentally where it's still too fresh or too present, right? So how would you navigate that? How would you navigate using your tools, so your dance style and your technique and everything you already know and or you already do in a classroom or in a studio? How would you use those and try to bring them, to offer them those tools, but at the same time making sure they're not re-traumatized by revisiting that, right? So the two of you, what you are suggesting is to do something that we call site-specific performance. So you're really inspired by the actual place. So there's a natural disaster that happened. It's a place that's already just the land say something, right? And so you're using that memory of the land. A war zone, the land has a story, and you cannot really create something without acknowledging that. And so I think it's really, really great that you already have that mechanic in your mind to use the land and use the site, right? So how would you go from there? How would you go from there to use the land, use the site, what it has to offer, the also the tragedies that happen there, without re-engaging the trauma? Okay, so I'm gonna give you a few more minutes to think about this. So we're gonna go like baby steps. Okay, I'm gonna give you like 5 more minutes to think about. Now that you are there, I can tell that the both of you have an idea of physically where you at in this imaginary scenario. Now that you are there, how do you go with teaching your styles? How do you start? How do you engage? Okay, so imagine a beginning of a class you usually teach. Okay, so for example, for me, when I start a dance class, I'm like, okay, hi guys, let's scan the body, just make sure so we know. So that's something I always do. Scan the body, tell us where you have some maybe some injuries or some pain. Let's just make sure. Okay, so I do that if I'm with dancers, like professional dancers or student dancers that I know are capable of doing this, right? But with, for example, if I'm in a women's shelter or if I'm in prison, I'm not necessarily going to do this the first session because, first of all, they don't really understand what I'm saying in scanning the body. They don't really have the tools and the vocabulary yet. They wouldn't know what to look for. So, what would be a baby step before that? What would be a step? So, my own, so that's something I would do. But so, my step before will be, okay, if you want to close your eyes, you can, but you don't have to. Some people don't want to because closing your eyes is surrendering. It's trusting the space. Maybe they don't trust the space and maybe they should not, right? So maybe they don't want to close their eyes. Okay, so I'm going to show them what it means to scan, or I'm going to make them face one another. And I do this little exercise when, I say, okay, let's see where you have pain. Do you have pain here? No. Do you have pain here? No. Do you have pain here? Oh, yes. Okay. So, and then next session, they will understand what scanning means. Does that make sense? So, how do you start a session? So, imagine starting your session. Okay. All right. 5 more minutes to think about this. 1 more minute and then we share. All right, how do we feel about sharing a little bit your process? It's not an easy task to do, okay? I completely realize that. All right, Dila, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I would start with forming a circle and
Mhm.
that, like learning their names, getting to know them, so we can be more familiar with each other.
Mhm.
And like, if the participants are kids, that's what I thought. Like, I would go to warm up, but I would include games.
Mhm.
Be more fun and they can be more comfortable.
Excellent. Yeah, beautiful. It's a perfect beginning, yes. Always use laughters, little games, even with adults, you know, people love laughing. People love, that's a bonding way, right? The more you laugh together, the closer you get. So excellent. How about, yes, go ahead.
It's so hard for this part. So because like I really don't want to know how can I start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like push them remember something or share something they don't want to remember or share.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would take them for a walk around the city first.
Wow.
Because I'm the nature disaster I'm talking about is an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see and feel everywhere the memories and the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to look at the stones and the buildings in this city, and if they felt comfortable, to touch them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they need to establish different relationship with the buildings and the structure and place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm trying. Like, because maybe it can be help them like to share the pain and the memories with the stones and the city. Maybe they can be more safe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Beautiful. It's it's a brilliant idea. Starting with walking around the site and bringing back the kind of happy memories they have about the remains. It's a beautiful way to engage with them. That's really what engaged artists you do as an engaged artist. You engage with the site. And so I love that you're starting with, so, and the two of you have the same approach. You start with laughters and you start with bringing back the physical memory of it. And it's the plasticity of it. So the walking around is an excellent idea. The touching is an excellent idea. Then maybe the step after could be the weight. So for example, not just, the touch, of course, like the plasticity of it, the actual, like the grain, but also how does it feel when you press some part of your bodies? Or, how does that feel when you get super, super heavy and then super, super, super light? So really interacting like physically with the weight, because the mental weight is hard to process, but it's very easy to understand the weight of your body, right? And so it's always good to start with that before you start talking about, more mentally challenging memories, right? So really starting with the weight of the body will be a perfect next step for that. I see this as like wandering in the city. That's a beautiful way to engage with the site. That's for sure. Yeah. Um, okay. So we both have our beginnings. Okay. How to engage. We have on one side we have a circle. We share who we are, right, and then we engage with movements through fun activities. Excellent. And for the other side, it's not necessarily about sharing who we are, but it's sharing ourselves with the actual memories throughout the site. Okay. We're going to do one more step and then we'll wrap up and we have questions. Okay. So the next step will be, how do you go from the physical involvement to a switch towards more storytelling? Okay. So how do you go from, I'm saying just, but it's not just, but just I'm going to use just because it's easier. Just um, dancing or just engaging physically, to more encouraging them to use storytelling, to use more the stories to create a little bit more and engage. Okay. Yeah. So in your sites, your respective sites, try to see what's the next step. So for the kids, how do you make them choreograph a little bit? Is your goal, and that's an open question, I don't know, is your goal to make them really realize where they are, or is your goal to make them, maybe dream they're somewhere else a little bit, right? To use dance to escape a little bit, or if you are, or are you trying to actually get grounded in the site? So it's a totally different form of engagement, right? With the dance. So 5 more minutes. How do you go? What's the next step to really enter more in the stories and storytelling? Okay. All right. Think about the next step and then we'll wrap up. Are you ready to share a little bit? But you, not yet. Okay.
Lucille, I hope you don't have an early morning.
Oh, I don't have anything planned.
Amazing.
But sleep.
I'm so happy. I feel better now.
It's 4:30 in the morning, but we're good. We're good. Okay. So let's share a little bit. Okay. So how are you going from what you just told us to storytelling? Should we keep the same order? First Dila, and then now we have a rhythm.
So that was a hard one. I thought maybe giving them some individual moments in the dance, or like giving directions to guide them about how they want to express the class and dance, or like moving like together at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but everyone's expressing themselves like differently
Mm-hmm.
together. So
So as a big group. Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Yeah, great. So you teach them a few steps, and then you give them a longer choreography, and you dance all together. Yeah,
Yeah,
would that be the idea?
yeah,
Yeah. And so and that's perfect. Another step would be to give them the opportunity to pick the song and to adapt whatever you taught them to the dance in a small group. You know what I mean? So let's say you have 20 people, 20 kids, right? Then you can make little groups, and then they get to pick their own song and adapt. And then they get to perform in front of their friends, you know? So that gives them the anxiety of performing, but it's a good anxiety compared to the type of anxiety they are going through on a daily basis. Does that make sense? So it's you know what I'm saying with the little anxiety before performing? Just even if it's just a minute, you always have some sort of excitement a little bit. And that's a form of joy that, maybe is not that present in their life. And so that's um, a good form of mini anxiety, right? And so in the brain, it doesn't do the same thing. For example, it's not the same type. It's a happy anxiety, or it's a good stress, right? So going from the group, I think it's really good. And then maybe making smaller groups so they can share and maybe talk and maybe have fun in smaller versions. I think that would be excellent. And I love that you took the option to just make them a little, go elsewhere in the body and the mind for a little while. I think it's especially for kids, it's always a very good strategy. Good. All right.
I couldn't think something first because I think it's the hardest step. But I think my next step would be like spend a lot of time there until they connect with that place. So because I have seen how kids overcome even the most difficult things in a different way
Mm-hmm.
after a while. So and what they're bringing afterwards really affects me. So I thought we can spend a lot of time until they feel safe in that
Mhm.
place, then I think I would like to record them when they're in their natural their self, when they're running, they're studying, dancing in that place. I will
Mhm.
record some little moments, the nature moments.
And what do you do with the recording?
Uh, like it's just when they're living their normal life in that space. For example, I will just
Separate or stare. Stare sometimes.
spare some time for them, like maybe 2 hours in the
Mhm.
place, and then record them, and they're just found something fun or interesting for them.
Mhm. So finding a new quality to the everyday movement, right? Is that what?
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Would you be, and I understand it's just completely hypothetical, but I'm just really into that idea. So then would you, for example, make them explore those everyday movement or choreograph them, or would you use the little videos to make a choreography? Like, how would you go with that?
I don't know. Like I think I would like really want to see them when they're creating something that like own, like choreographing something,
Mhm.
try something, or improvising,
Mhm.
and then record them. But I think I want to see all the videos and what I have, what we have in our hand, then choreograph something.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure.
No, no, it's great. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's just I'm trying to see how far, you can use that idea. I think it's a beautiful idea. Yeah. Because just the walking around is an everyday movement. That's also part of many choreographies, just walking, right? It depends on the intention you have when you walk. Um, okay, beautiful. Um, so how would you now, last question, and then you have time to ask me questions if you have questions, but how, now that we've done this little exercise, so to go from a typical class you would teach, you took this to a context of site-specific, um, community-based work. How would you take now? How would you do the opposite? How would you take what you've just done? How would you use those new techniques or strategies? How would you bring this back to the studio? So I'm trying to show you how you can inform in the studio. You don't have to ignore the work you do in the community. And when you're working with communities, you use the tools that you usually use in studio, but you can also do the reverse, right? So it's once you start doing this work, it's always like one feeds the other. The studio becomes also a place where you experimenting stuff that you can do with non-dancers or non-professional dancers, and vice versa. So maybe try to think about, from what you just shared, one element that would be super interesting to actually try with dancers in a more traditional dance class, right? The typical class that you usually teach with kids or whatever. What thing you were like, okay, that's actually a really good idea. I would love to try it with a more traditional class. We have a little routine now.
Like like you said, choosing their song.
Yeah.
performance anxiety. I would do that more.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. I'm glad.
I don't know. I think I just stopped.
Well, I can tell you, like you just gave a lot of ideas that I want to use in studio now, you know. The walking through the lost memories of a space. It's brilliant. The physical engagement with a space that's gone. That's something that also we do. I don't know, for example, when let's say you've been practicing a show for a while, a performance for a while, and then at the last minute, the choreographer says, you remember when you were supposed to fall down? Now you don't fall anymore, and you need to stand still. The day of the show, you don't fall down, but you feel the weight going down, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the same for what you're describing. They are actually going through those, I'm sure in their mind, they see the building, even if it's not there anymore. They kind of, so engaging with the lost memory, but the presence of the lost memory, I think it's super interesting, even in studio. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it up for, so if you have questions, or we have still 15 more minutes.
For now, I'm just processing.
Yeah, for sure.
We're just changing the microphone. I have a couple of things that I would like to share. As I was listening to you and folks here like talk about these different ideas of teaching different populations, vulnerable populations, it made me realize when we think about activism in dance or in any discipline, but specifically in dance, since bodies are involved, the word active feels like you need to do something, like you're doing, you're giving, which majorly is a part of that. You're teaching them something, you're sharing your experience, your technique, your style, your space, you're creating that space. And I was also thinking, Lucille, when you asked, like, how would you approach the teaching when you first meet the people? I think we sometimes underestimate the power of silence too, like making room for silence, for moments of pauses to actually understand what the room needs and to get to know the people there and also allow them to get to know you before even going into the material that you want to share with. Like, because we have an idea of what the vulnerable population have gone through, but we only have an idea. We don't actually know until they start trusting and sharing. So I think that's also a big part of the methodology, and which is something that I've learned from you too, and we've experienced both sides of it, like what happens when you leave room for silence and what happens when you don't, when you like try to fill up the space or start assuming that like people might feel in a certain way. So I think leaving room for that is really valuable in activism work community.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at the beginning, when I started 8 years ago, I had a lot of assumptions, and you just learn as you go. You just learn to actually shift something that you thought it would go that way, or they would need that, or that will feel good, but it doesn't. So you need to shift very quickly and adapt and have this agility to actually adapt very quickly. Something that you don't really have to think about when you teach a more traditional class in a studio. That's not something, you go through your thing. Maybe you go slower or faster, but it's not really about readjusting your entire structure. But when you work in different communities, you do have to adapt all the time. So maybe you're going to want to, take them and wander the city. And then, there's one, she's going to just stop and start crying. What do you do with that? It's just like, how do you handle someone that just stops because she cannot move anymore? How do you handle that? Do you stop the entire group and address that, or do you keep going? If you work, I don't know, with kids, and you realize that, I don't know, two of them or three of them are extremely injured, and you did not really plan that, and so they still want to participate, but they're very injured, and you cannot, and you don't want to kick them out. You want to include them, but how do you go with that? So having this agility is very important when you do activism in the artistic setting. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think activism, like working in activism in art and dance, do we create space for people to process the difficult circumstances, or do we create that space for them to escape from that reality, even maybe for that moment, or do we create that space to represent something of that difficult situation?
All of the above. I think it really depends how long you have with the people. If it's just a one shot or a couple of times and it's a very short amount of time, the escape is the best way to go, because you cannot really pretend to do very heavy work or deep work when you just are going to meet the people once or twice, right? So using dance as an escape for a specific moment is great. I think it's the best way to go. However, if you're going to see them for a long time, and this is like a project you have over a few weeks or a few months, of course you can go deeper, and of course that can be something that's very healing, and with also always keeping in mind that you are not a therapist. You cannot subtract yourself, or you cannot tell them, it's okay, cancel your therapy sessions, I'm here. No, obviously no. But it's more, at least what I do with the company, it's really the fact that they're producing something and they're making something out of those memories and out of what they embody. The fact that they're producing something, they are shifting their own narrative and they're shifting the memory, because then the memory is crystallized elsewhere. It became something that they decided to produce, and that is already
their own terms.
You know what I mean? And so they're in control of that. They're not in control of anything else, most likely, but they are in control of what they decide to do with that specific moment or memory that we trying to recollect, or so that part is definitely healing and definitely a deeper work. And representation is very important. I have participants that they don't necessarily need to talk about themselves or create movements. They're happy to just embody the stories of others, just because they feel it somehow, more than creating their own. Like, I've had all sorts of possible, ways to deal with that. There's people that don't feel comfortable representing other people, so they will stick to their own movement. And I have people that don't really want to create because it requires too much that they maybe not ready for. But they're very fine with just, dancing the movements of others, and it's fine.
Do we have any questions for Lucille? I mean, we talked about quite a bit of stuff and like
Yeah.
heavy topics, so it's okay if the question is not coming up.
Of
right?
course.
You can always reach out and ask your questions later. I'm also going to share the On Borders website.
Mhm.
I'm glad you got to take a look at it today. You can check out the videos. There are so many other videos on the website and testimony from people too.
And if you ever start, working with, for example, if you go back to your hometown and you actually do this work, and reach out, even if it's in 5 years, I remember you. And so just like reach out, and, if you need some like, oh, what would be the next step? Or, I would be happy to just help you design whatever feels the most appropriate for, whatever population you want to work with. I mean, yeah. So feel free to reach out.
Lucille, thank you so much for making time to join us this morning.
Of course, it was a pleasure.
Morning for you. It's all high. I hope you get some rest before your day.
I'm going to sleep right away.
That's wonderful.
But thank you so much, though. It was really good. You are two excellent students. I can tell you're very invested in your communities and you want to do. I mean, you're already very mature. I don't know how old you are, but for being at a university and college, you seem very mature about how to process different settings. So it's really nice. I'm very pleased. Thank you, Yıldız, for inviting me.
Thank you, Lucille. We hope to see you again soon, maybe hopefully in person here if we can arrange that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Until then, take really, really good care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.